Why do hardworking employees get ignored? Why do politics decide your worth? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Bad Influencer. Hit subscribe.
It's a familiar scene. Late hours in a quiet office, working through the weekend to salvage a project that is visibly slipping away. If the effort pays off and the project succeeds, the praise follows the hierarchy upward. Leadership takes the stage to accept the credit for a successful delivery. But if the project fails despite those extra hours, that same hierarchy reverses. The responsibility is pushed down the chain, landing on the people who were closest to the work. In this environment, high visibility doesn't offer protection. It creates more surface area for blame. When the system is designed to deflect consequence, even the most dedicated personal effort becomes an insufficient shield. This specific direction of failure is a mechanic known as downward accountability. Most corporate structures operate like a one-way valve. As seen in this hierarchy, the rewards of a win rise to the narrow peak, while the weight of failure is dropped onto the wide base. This ensures that those responsible for execution become the default targets when systemic disasters occur. This isn't an accidental glitch in office culture. It is an intentional feature of an organization designed to protect the top at the expense of the bottom. To understand how this outcome is secured, we have to look at the project kickoff. The collapse often begins with a mismatch. Leadership announces aggressive deadlines, while simultaneously restricting the budget and staff needed to meet them. At this stage, frontline employees often identify the gap. They raise specific concerns about technical debt, unrealistic timelines, and the high probability of failure. These warnings are frequently sidelined. Instead of adjusting the plan to match the data, leadership relies on forced optimism to bridge the gap. This chart tracks the resulting divergence. The gap between the planned delivery and the realistic timeline represents ignored risks, creating a deficit that eventually becomes unbridgeable. Because the project was mathematically broken from the start, the final collapse is a predictable outcome of initial planning. When the project eventually stops moving, the narrative changes. While the failure is systemic, the search for a cause rarely looks at the system itself. The actual roots of the failure, poor communication and flawed decision-making from the top, are obscured by the urgent need to find an individual to blame. In a crisis, leadership focus shifts to self-preservation. The fear of accountability drives a need to distance themselves and protect personal reputations. This process thrives when there is a lack of transparent project governance. Without clear records of who made which decisions, office politics becomes the primary tool for assigning fault. By controlling the official channels of communication, leadership can frame the story. They emphasize errors in execution while ignoring the impossible constraints that made those errors inevitable. The postmortem becomes a tool for survival, a way to protect those who made the plan by blaming the people who tried to build it. The damage of a manipulated narrative reaches into the core mechanics of the workforce. For the employees, the result is a cycle of frustration and burnout. The expectation of support is replaced by an expectation of betrayal, eroding the trust necessary for a functional team. This environment forces colleagues to become defensive. When anyone could be the next scapegoat, internal competition replaces collaboration as everyone attempts to secure their own position. The final cost is the death of innovation. In a culture where failure is punished rather than analyzed, no one is willing to take the risks required for progress. Downward accountability transforms the office into a space where avoiding blame is the only remaining priority. It is rarely possible for an individual employee to fix a toxic organizational structure from the bottom up. However, you can adopt a defense protocol to protect your career from the effects of downward accountability. This protocol is built on the practice of radical, methodical documentation. The first step is to keep a written record of every risk you identify. Every time a resource is denied or a deadline is moved, it must be noted in writing. Send regular status updates that clearly state progress and obstacles. These create a time-stamped history of the project's trajectory that cannot be easily rewritten later. Define responsibilities in writing at the start of every phase. When concerns arise, escalate them using data and specific examples, rather than relying on tone or emotion. Blame shifting requires the cover of ambiguity. A detailed paper trail removes the uncertainty that leadership uses to deflect responsibility. You will inevitably face situations where the weight of a failure is pushed in your direction. In those moments, your value is protected by the tangible evidence of your contributions and the warnings you provided. By maintaining a professional fortress of documentation, you ensure that when the gravity of blame falls, it finds no place to settle.